So I should be recording now, hopefully. Can somebody tell me if, yeah, I think it's recording. So just so you're aware that I have just taken on this unit this year. So in the audio, if you're listening, you're going to hear different unit leaders. You'll hear Lynn Ducker, who used to take, so the unit was split kind of in two. So Lynn used to have the RA part, and then Moira had MECFS. So you're well familiar with Moira. But that's just, so when you're listening to the audio, that you're not kind of going, that doesn't sound like Gwen. It's because it's not me. I've reviewed the material pretty thoroughly. I've gone down a few rabbit holes with both conditions. I now think I may need to change from hormones to MECFS. I think it's so fascinating. So I really think you're going to love this unit as well, especially because the first week now, this week, you have just for revision of the previous unit. So for unit 7, 8, and 9, which I think is really nice to give you kind of a bit of a breather before you dive into these two really complex, poorly understood, especially for MECFS conditions. You get to review it. We have tutorials on next week and then at the lecture weekend as well. So hopefully you'll have loads of questions that I can go through with you, because I teach unit 7 and unit 9. So I'll have a good understanding of those, and I've reviewed unit 8 as well. So I think that's a really nice part, that you get 1 week, essentially it's a reading week really, where you get to review, but you also get tutorials to back that up. And then we get to look at rheumatoid arthritis and ME and CFS, so chronic fatigue syndrome as well. And you're putting exactly what Laura said, really. You're looking at cases from point of view of what are the nutrition, lifestyle, and environmental factors that are contributing, what's the research, what's the pathophysiology. So it's really interesting. And you're going to see quite a stark difference, I think, between the biomedical model and the functional medicine model, especially for MECFS. There's a reflection question on that as well. So what we'll do is we'll jump straight in. Some of you I know have had time already to review the introduction PowerPoint. Some of you I'm sure have not, being, you know, the crazy times that we're still in, and also really that this is the purpose of tonight. So I'm going to pretend that none of you have a clue about the unit and go into it that way. So these are the two PowerPoints that are part of the unit. So it's actually, considering that it's a 5-week unit, you only have 2 big PowerPoints once you've done the revision work, which is nice. You know, you don't have, like in some of the other units, like, you know, where you have maybe 5 or 6 parts, there's really only 2 for this unit. So it's 5 weeks delivered through, we've said, the PowerPoints, and we have the lecture, which is open to everybody this time around. And it's brilliant to see quite a lot of the e-learners are coming on board for the weekend, which is great. Then we have quite a few YouTube videos that are embedded within the PowerPoints. And I also already have 1 or 2 that I want to share with you in the shared resources as well. And then we've got all the webinars as of tonight as well. And you have Moira uploaded the new versions. So I think it's version 7 for the in-class and version 9 for the e-learners, because they are separate. So then this is how it's delivered. And we had 2 separate slides for this, okay, up until last Friday morning. We had an in-class slide and an e-learning class, but then when we realized that I think 90% of e-learners are intending on attending at least part of the weekend, we said it was just repeating itself, so we've put them in together. So I answered Alva's post on the forum to give a suggested kind of study timetable if you don't want to attend the lecture weekend. So that's there if you want to go and have a look at it. Of course, you can ask me as well. You'll see that the first assessment is the quiz. That's fine. The second assessment then is based on rheumatoid arthritis and case 5. At the lecture weekend, we do that on the Sunday, and there's a reason for that. So for those of you who aren't going to the lecture weekend, I would say next week, focus on part 1, which is rheumatoid arthritis. And then do the assessment, because you have to work with your partner. And then the following week, like once you've done assessment 2, then you focus on PowerPoint 2, which is MECFS, so that you can work on assessment 3 then. So it's slightly different. And you'll see that the webinars, just for the in-class, all the webinars are pretty much optional, even though I would strongly recommend that you attend next week for definite. But then the one I'll show you, actually, it's easier if I just go through it. So these are the webinars. So tonight's the induction. Then we have next week, we will do a tutorial on defense and repair and in energy imbalances. And this is the one that I really feel quite strongly that everybody should attend, and make sure you review that. So that's Unit 8. Review that really carefully in the next few days, maybe tomorrow and Wednesday, that's what you focus on. And post questions on the forum for me so that we can make this a really interactive tutorial, because these imbalances are vital for your understanding for both RA and MACFS. So if you're not comfortable with Unit 8 material, and I know a lot of students aren't, because you have to go into the immune system and the likes of the glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and all those lovely bits and pieces, you need a really good grasp of those to then properly understand RA and MACFS. So that's why I think this is a really important tutorial. And we didn't have these tutorials before. They were brought in because Moira and I both feel that the revision will really stand to you, so that when you go into the summer holidays, you know you've done the revision and you can start P&T without having to review all the imbalances again. Or if you do, it'll be a real quick summary, you know, but you'll have got those questions, those niggly questions. You know, some of you might be going, well, what's the difference between using fatty acids or glucose down for the Krebs cycle? You know, what's the difference in the link reaction, or whichever it may be that you want to ask me about? Ask that. But if you put it down on the forum as a question, then I can also make sure I'm prepared as best as I can, because remember, that's not a unit I used to teach before, so I'm not going to know it inside out and backwards. So I'd prefer to have the preparation to make sure I give you the correct answers. Week 3 tutorial, then this is on RA. So it's the same, it's especially for the e-learners that aren't doing the lecture weekend on the Sunday. So it's when you're reviewing RA next week, same thing, post the questions on the forum so that we can make sure that 1 hour is spent really well going through what you want to ask about RA, because that will help you with your assessment too. That's why we've moved the assessment presentations to the Thursday for e-learners to give you this tutorial. Just again, I just want to make sure that there's no questions, you know, that could have easily been answered by me in an hour, and it'll really help you with your assessment, I hope. So then you've got the next webinars are your presentation webinars. Week 4, there's no webinars. It's basically just to give you time to review ME/CFS and get started on assessment 3, because that's your big, it's like the end of year assessments. It's 2,600 words. Everything you've learned in previous units, you're putting into one report. So it's a big assessment. And then in week 5, I'm on annual leave. So Moira's taking that tutorial with everybody. And she's done this for the last couple of years, and she wrote the PowerPoint for ME/CFS. So she is the expert, and she'll guide you through the assessment 3, any questions you have, and any outstanding questions on ME/CFS as well. So I hope you can see what we've done with the webinars, how we've moved them to try and really support you with not only the content of this unit and the assessments, but also reviewing all the IFM units 7, 8, and 9. So I've just taken screenshots of the timetables that's gone up today, this morning. I think Moira posted them at 12, around that time, with the dates in there. And just to point out then that the in-class assessment presentations are on the Wednesday and the e-learners are on the Thursday. And I've put in a note in red for the e-learners. So just to make up your clinic hours for year 2, you must attend 2 hours of webinars. So I'm suggesting that's either next week, so webinar 2, which is the defense and repair and energy imbalances tutorial, or it's the one in week 5, which is the assessment and ME/CFS tutorial. One of those two is 2 hours, and that'll be noted. And I will feed that back to Catherine. So I will tell her who attended. It has to be, you have to be there in person. So it's, as far as I'm aware, you can't just watch the recording because it's your clinic hours. If there's a problem attending one of those, please let me know and I will check in with Catherine as well. Okay. So then we have just a little note about the tutorials, which rely on your questions. So it's really important to note that these are interactive tutorials based on your questions that you post on the forum. So I'm not preparing, and Moira won't be preparing a whole presentation on these, okay? Because you have all the material already. You have a whole big clinical imbalances summary PowerPoint, 245 slides, which is the which we're saying to review that for next Monday. Of course, some of you will say, oh, you know what, assimilation I'm fine with. I'm not going to review that section yet. You could do that another time. So I would say start with the defense and repair, which is the immune system, and the energy imbalances. And then at any time before next Monday at 11 a.m., you post questions. So what I'll do is tomorrow, I'm going to put up a forum post, I'll pin it, and it'll say, please post your questions here for webinar 2 on defense and repair mitochondrial imbalances, okay? Or energy production, sorry. So that's where you put your questions. And it can be a really, like I said, it can be a very general question, like, please, can you review the Krebs cycle, Gwen? Fine. I'll pull up a few diagrams on the Krebs cycle and we can go through it, because the Krebs cycle is really important. You'll see that on at the weekend, really important for ME/CFS. It might be, oh, I'm not sure about DAMPs and PAMPs, or how chronic inflammation, what are the mediators of chronic inflammation? So it can be very specific and can be very broad. I don't mind at all. It's just to make sure that you engage with this material and you get the most out of this reading week, rather than just going, ah, sure, yeah, it's a reading week, I'll do nothing. And then you'll struggle with the rest of the material. So just please use it. The onus is on you. If there's only 2 questions for the tutorial, that's what I will go through, and then I'll end the tutorial, even if it's 7:30. So I'm giving you a heads up, because this is what we do in PNT as well. We're putting the onus on you to use the tutorials. If there's 3 or 4 of you who are like, just the immune system, can you give us a quick review of the immune system? That's fine, I can do that too. But I'm looking to you for guidance, rather than me just being on and going blah, 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 blah. And you're sitting at home going, oh, why did I come on this? I know this already. Okay, so post the questions on the thread by Monday morning of that day. So it'll be the same for the RA webinar, which is week 3. By 11 o'clock that Monday, I'll expect questions up, so that I've got a couple of hours, because I work till 1 o'clock on a Monday. So I've got 2 hours then to put the material together for you guys. And of course, they'll be recorded and uploaded on the Tuesday as well. So here's just, I already mentioned the 3 assessments. So assessment 1 is a quiz. You get your usual 5 attempts at it. Assessment 2 is your pair presentation. So that's case 5 and it's on RA. And then assessment 3 is the big case report, and it's on case 6, which is ME/CFS. And just refer to your own hand-in schedules for the submission dates on those. And this is the schedule. Now, we were waiting for a couple of students to come back, and I think we didn't have 2 people confirm which time slot they wanted. So have a look. It's in your assessment 2 folder. Have a look. Double check you're happy with the time. If there's an issue, email me and I'll see what I can do to accommodate you. But it is up to you. And you'll see I've put a little note in there as well, that if at this point you don't have the email address for the person that you've been paired with, then please just ask me and I'll connect the 2 of you. Because I can't post all the emails online due to GDPR. So it's a case of contacting me and I'll give you the email address by CCing in your partner, so that they're aware that you asked me for their email address, okay? Where possible, we've taken the feedback on board, and thank you very much, some of you, for going different times of day. I've been warned about this assessment that it's really, really intense to mark, and I have to give you your feedback right then and there. So doing it all in an evening, which is the way we used to do it, has been really, really challenging for the unit leader, and has left the people quite unwell afterwards. It's so intense. So that's why we've split it up into 2 time slots during the day. So we were hoping that the lunchtime slot would suit anybody who's actually working, who can take lunchtime. So yeah, let's hope it works. And let me know if your time slot doesn't. So then, does anybody have any questions at this stage about the webinars or anything like that before I look at the assessments? No? Okay, so we'll look at the assessments and the lecture timetable as well. So your assessment 2 is the one that I've just shown you your pair allocation for. Some of you, I'm sure, didn't get time to spot your name, so I'll let you look at it online later. So it's on case 5, as I've said, it's an RA case because it's associated with rheumatoid arthritis. You have a PowerPoint template, which I'll open up in a little while and show you, that you have to use. You have 20 minutes maximum. Like this is, the timing was based on a group presentation, but the feedback from students was that they found the group situation a little bit more stressful than a pair. So we decided this year to give you pair work instead, which means hopefully that both people get equal time. So it's maximum of 20 minutes. So don't panic if it's only 15, that's fine. The reason there's a 30-minute slot is that I will give you verbal feedback straight away then, and then I'll be jumping into another presentation. So that's why you really, really have to be mindful of the timing. And at 20 minutes, I will have to stop you. So just bear that in mind. I do think it's plenty time. You'll see there's not a huge amount of slides in the presentation. So I think you'll be just fine. And then we've allocated time on the Sunday afternoon for the pair to get started on it. So you'll have basically covered the RA material. I will invite you to quickly scan it next week. Then we'll go through the main points on the Sunday. I'll introduce you to the assessment in a little bit more detail than what we're doing now. So I think I have 45 minutes allocated. Then you go off and you work with your partner, and then I'll stay on Zoom. So you can always jump back on and ask me questions if you're unclear. And then we'll all come together at the end of the day for about 15, 20 minutes, and we'll just check in if there was any issues or anything like that. And then you have another couple of days to work together. So I would suggest you probably need to set up at least one more meeting with your partner to finish your assessment. So that'll be up to you to get in touch. So I would suggest you probably do that tomorrow, you know, double check, okay, are you going to be available at the lecture weekend? If not, let me know. But you can probably work on your own bit anyway, so it's not going to be time lost, you know. So just so that you have a heads up. So you've between now and Sunday week to get yourself sorted with your partner, so you've plenty of time. And then you've got another 3 days if you're the learners, or 2 days if you are in class, which should be plenty of time to get the assessment done. So it was the same timing last year and it worked fine for the students. And it seems to, by all accounts, be an assessment that's answered really well. So I'm really excited about marking it as well. And then assessment 3 is case 6, which is on MECFS. And this is the big report. So it's 2,600 words, which also includes a reference, a reflection question for your clinic folder as well. So please, please, I know that from having marked some of unit 8s and all of unit 9, that some people I had commented that they really need to reflect better. So use this opportunity, because we're asking you really to reflect on the biomedical model and the functional medicine model, so that you're really leaving this year with a very strong sense of their strengths and their weaknesses. So if what I found really good from a lot of students, you use the models you learned in NLC, you use the reflection models, and they were really, really strong. So some people used, I think, was it Gibbs's cycle for reflection, others used specific questions, and that might really help you. So if you feel that reflection is something you're not very strong in, maybe go and spend half an hour, look back through your NLC material or any comments that previous unit leaders have given you on your reflection question in the previous 4 units, and just really put that into play here. It's only, I think, 250 words, so it's not a massive reflection, but just finish strong on this going into next year, because you'll find that as a practitioner, you'll be reflecting all the time, like constantly, like so that's reflection, isn't it? Anyway. So when you're with the client even, you'll find yourself kind of going, oh, could I have explained that better? Or afterwards, you think, how did that go? How was the timing? What was the body language like? So it's really important that you kind of just do it as part of your practice. That reflection is just normal. So you have case 6, and there is a video for that, for this assessment that Moira recorded. So you can use that to help you with this assessment as well. And you have the tutorial. So I do think that even though it sounds like a really big report, you'll see now when we go through it that it's broken down into questions guiding you through the report. And there's also, to help you out further, there's a sample report for case 4, which you've seen before as well. So, you know, you have a recorded audio, a video on what to do with it. You have the case, you have a sample answer as well, and there's a tutorial. So for anybody who's kind of going, oh my gosh, that sounds like a huge amount of work, it is, but there's a lot of help and support, and this is answered really well from what I've been told, because I haven't read one yet. So I'm really looking forward to the 20th of July when I get to mark these, because it's a really interesting area. So I'm hoping you'll be excited about the unit rather than being a bit scared by it. And what we'll do now is we're going to look at, so hopefully it's all open, the assessment. So let me just double check assessment 2 to start with. It's great to see most of you are on, which is fab. So assessment 2 then, just again, if it should be up on your screens in a PDF document. If you can't see it, just unmute yourself and shout. So it's telling you all the associated documents with it. As usual, you have case 5. Now you'll note that you don't have a matrix and a timeline because these are the things you need to do yourself. And all the bits and pieces about the dates that you're delivering it, which is, I've already mentioned, which is Wednesday the 1st or Thursday the 2nd of July. And what you'll do is you'll upload it before 9 a.m. of the day of your presentation. And that's really important because, again, based on previous experience from other unit leaders, not getting the presentation first means the unit leader is going in blind. So they'll be trying to, I would be trying to read your presentation whilst listening to you and make notes to give you feedback at the same time, which is very stressful for the person doing it. But I also think it can be really hard then to give you the best attention. So that's why I'm asking you to give it to me. Ideally, I've said 10, but 9 o'clock if you can at all possible, because we're starting at 12, just to give me enough time that I can review your presentations, because then I'll have made notes on what I want to ask or double check in your presentation to make sure, you know, I get the best out of you to award you all the ACs that you deserve. So please do that, and the submission site is open and ready to go. So basics of it is to review case 5, and there's additional notes given to you, so it's not just the questionnaire, you have a bit extra. So you then evaluate the case together. So you either set up for Skype, and even if you're not attending the lecture weekend, if you wanted to use that time on the Sunday afternoon, you know, if it's possible for you, if you have somebody to help with childcare or you're not working, maybe just carve out an hour and a half there and say, okay, to your partner, I'm not doing the lecture weekend, but yes, I can chat to you from 3 to half 4 on that Sunday or whatever it is. That might be nice just to carve that time out now. Here are all the ACs that are associated with it, so you can read that in your own time. Do note that there is one AC from Unit 1, as always, which is your 4.1, which is your own ability to, you know, to put your own thoughts into writing, but keeping academic writing. So you're not saying, we think that, you know, saying we think that the trigger for her RNA won't be meeting that AC, you know. You could say something like, the most obvious trigger for this client's onset of rheumatoid arthritis is. So it sounds like a small difference, but one is the academic writing, one is too informal. So once you've done that, you're going to then review. Obviously, you should have reviewed the RA PowerPoint at this stage. So either you'll do it at the weekend, even though I would say to all of you, have a quick look at it next week, just to be familiar with it. And then what you do is you plot the timeline and the matrix, create a mind map. So you've done this, you've seen them, you know, in all the previous units, 7, 8, and 9, we've done that, haven't we? We've done your timeline matrix and interpretation, and that's your mind map. How are the imbalances interconnected? You've described them. So if you think about it in Unit 9, you were writing about estrogen dominance and how by transformation imbalances might have an impact. You know, that's your mind map, essentially. And then what you do is you look at the key imbalances as well as the nutrition, lifestyle, and environmental factors that are driving these. Again, you've done this. We asked you to identify the main nutrition, main lifestyle, main environmental, and then pick one. If you think back to Unit 7, 8, and 9 assessment, pick one and rationalize why. So you've done a good chunk of this assessment already. You're just applying it to a new case and a new condition. So it's all relevant to RA specifically. And then you do your presentation. You put it all together. Sounds easy, right? So what I'll do is I'll show you the PowerPoint now. Sorry, I have to open this again. So because there's a few color codes in this. So I know we're jumping around a lot, but hopefully you'll get a good overview of the unit. So you put anything in blue is a slide that you keep for your presentation. So I'm going to say that again. Anything that has a blue title ends up in your final presentation, okay? Some of the other slides are instruction slides. They tell you what to do. So you remove them, you delete that slide before you submit your assessment. So it's just the ones with blue that you need to fill in. So on this one, what you do is you put in the student names. So whoever's working together, I couldn't tell you one of the pairings even off my head, sorry, pop them in there, okay? And then you have instructions, and you'll see up on the top right, you'll see a little icon with action steps. And they're the slides that you'll delete. Basically, this is what tells you what to do, and then you do it. And you delete the slide. Okay, so your final draft will be 7 slides, and all of them will have titles in blue. 7 slide total. So not 11 or 13, 7. So it is quite a short presentation. That's what I really want to stress to you, that when you're thinking, oh my gosh, 20 minutes talking in front of Gwen, you'll be fine, because it's only 7 slides and there's 2 of you, and you can only take 15 minutes if you wish, okay? You don't have to take the 20 minutes. So anything has a blue heading, keep it in your presentation. Anything that has on top right, the little action step symbol, remove it when you're done with it. So here's your synopsis. Okay, so this is the synopsis of the client. So she's a 45-year-old mother of twins, and she has been diagnosed with seropositive rheumatoid arthritis. This to most of you will mean nothing at the moment because you haven't looked at the material yet, but you will know. You'll also soon, trust me, know what it means that she has autoantibodies to citrulline proteins. I hadn't a clue what that meant when I looked at this when I took on the unit. And then I got into the PowerPoint and I went, oh, right, okay. Because it's pretty much all about citrulline proteins. So you'll be really familiar with it once you've reviewed the PowerPoint, I promise. Goes through her signs and symptoms. It tells you that she's under the care of a rheumatologist. She's had 2 flare-ups. Tells you the medication she's on. Methotrexate, which is a DMARD. Again, you'll be familiar with this once you review the PowerPoint. It's a really common, just from the little bit of research I've done on my own, outside the material as well, this comes up over and over again as the biomedical treatment for RA, is this exact medication. And then it just says that she doesn't know exactly what causes the flare-up in her symptoms, but she thinks it might be stressful events. So there's your case synopsis. Here's your timeline. Okay, so you've been given all these things. I would just recommend you do them yourself first because you get to practice, okay? Then you're going to plot the matrix. So again, this is an action step one, so you can remove this. Then you put in your matrix. So you can give them the timeline, though I would strongly urge you to practice it yourself first, because the more timelines you do, the quicker you'll get. And then you can compare to what we have. And then you do the matrix. So you could work on this, probably ideally with your partner. And then what you do is you take a screenshot of it and you add it into this slide. So this is another slide that you keep, but there should be a lovely matrix in here. Then you do your mind map. So this is telling you how to do your mind map. So the first thing you should do is list all the potential imbalances. So there might be loads. So, you know, she might have signs and symptoms of maldigestion, hypochlorhydria, 3 different types of dysbiosis, biliary insufficiency, intestinal permeability, basically all of the assimilation ones. So you put them all down. Then, you know, you end up looking at, well, what are the key ones? So look at the ones that have more than, you know, maybe one sign or symptom, or what are the ones that are implicated in the development of RA, or that might be a trigger, you know, but first list them all. That's the slide you keep in, a list of all the potential clinical imbalances. So can you see now why we're reviewing all the clinical imbalances? Because once you review them this week, and then you can ask me questions in the tutorials, so both Monday night and Saturday of the lecture weekend, we can go drill them down so that when you do this assessment, they're going to be really fresh in your mind. When you read her questionnaire and the additional notes, those imbalances should be jumping off the page at you. You know, you should just be going, oh yeah, hypochlorhydria, maldigestion, got it. Oh, there's a bit of hypothyroidism, you know, because you've just reviewed it. Then again, next steps for using a mind map. So step 2, and we've given you a color code just so that they're all kind of uniform. So we're suggesting red for the key clinical imbalances. So that list you've just put in, you condense it down to the key imbalances. Then you put the signs and symptoms associated with them in green. And then you put the key nutritional, lifestyle, or environmental factors in blue. Okay, so nice little color code. Then you consider the interrelationships, as I've just mentioned. And then don't forget that plotting that takes time to practice. And some of you, I know already from feedback, is some of you love a mind map and some of you struggle a little bit. What might help, the way I do mine, is I do mine on pen and paper. I find it difficult to do them on Word or in PowerPoint or whatever. I struggle with the graphics and stuff, and they slow me down, you know, drawing all the arrows and boxes and things. So I would personally do it on paper first, and then I can put it in to Word, maybe with my partner, you know. So I'd be inclined that I go away and I do my mind map, and I let my partner do the mind map, and then we come together and we put it together. That's probably how I would work, but it's up to you how you decide to work. So then you put in your mind map into this slide, all right? So this is another one that you keep. So you can also, and I like this, you can just take a picture of your hand-drawn one. If you're like me and you need to physically do this, so I'm quite kinesthetic when it comes to this way of learning. Like I write notes all the time in different colors because I'm visual as well as kinesthetic. The drawing and the writing really helps me remember stuff. But what you're going to do is you're going to explain it to me. So there's going to be a nice little picture of a mind map, and you will explain the key imbalances, the interrelationships, the signs and symptoms, and the nutrition, lifestyle, environmental factors. So that's where your presentation bit really comes into it. And this is an example of a mind map. Not necessarily this client's one, okay? So this is just an example of a mind map and the colors that I explained and what it should look like. And then you discuss it. And then you do the evaluation of the case. And this is a little bit what you've done already in previous units, you know? So justify why you chose those imbalances as being the key ones. Why didn't you choose, say, hypochlorhydria? Why did you go with a fungal dysbiosis? Why not both, for example? What are the most significant contributing factors? So now I'm hoping it makes sense to you why we asked you to choose one main one in unit 7, 8, and 9, because here you have to tell us out loud why you chose them. Keep it professional, keep it academic. Remember, you're meeting AC 4.1 from unit 1. And then you need to look at the interrelationships. So if you remember in unit 7, 8, and 9, that was always the last question before your reflection question. So you might want to have a quick look over that assessment, or those 3 assessments if you want, to read those interrelationships if you wish, if they're relevant, of course. Don't start talking about the thyroid or progesterone estrogen balance just because I'm the unit leader, okay? Don't think, oh, Gwen wants to hear about hormones. No, I want to hear about the relevant imbalances in this case, okay? And then you're going to be talking about the antecedents, the triggers, and the mediators. And that's an action step. and then you summarize it. Okay, so we've given you an example of a conclusion as well. So again, this is a slide that you're going to then keep. Well, not this one, the next one. So you'll read here, this is for case 4. So it's telling you about the key clinical imbalance, which it's saying is insulin resistance. It's telling you about what's the driver, so what's the mediator, which is a refined carbohydrate diet, and then some of the other clinical imbalances that might have preceded. So maybe that are the triggers. For example, dysbiosis, as an example. There could have been inflammation due to weight gain. And then it could also go into the antecedents and the mediators, for example, to inflammation as well. And then there's a little conclusion right at the end. See, just a little paragraph at the end. And that says, which is the dietary factor that is key in this case, what is the environmental and what is the lifestyle factors. So for example, stress, lack of sleep. So you don't have to pick just one. You can be a little bit broader here. As you can see, it talks about the dietary factors being refined carbohydrates, lack of dietary fiber, low antioxidants, lack of essential fatty acids, and high trans fats in combination with other stuff. So you don't have to narrow it down to just one of each, which is nice. And then you're putting it in here, and that's it. So you'll see that the example is 16 slides, but your overall one will only be 7. So it isn't a huge presentation. So I'm hoping that you're feeling a little bit calm about it. Again, you'll see I'll introduce you to case 5. We'll have an extra tutorial on RA if needs be. And the case really is quite kind of it's not like, you're not going to be sifting through it wondering how come this client ever developed RA. Same with the ME/CFS. You know, as you're reading through the questionnaire, with the condition in mind, you'll already start spotting triggers or antecedents or mediators, you know. So once you're familiar with the pathogenesis and the pathophysiology of the condition, so you'll know things like, for example, you'll learn that estrogen is involved with the pathophysiology of RA. So when you've read that PowerPoint, you know, in your head, you're going to be scanning that questionnaire going, well, are there any issues with estrogen metabolism or estrogen dominance in this client? I didn't know that, by the way, until I took the unit on. I had no idea of this link with RA and estrogen, which fascinated me. Of course, it's hormones. But that's what I'm saying. Once you've reviewed the material, you'll find that you're already scanning the questionnaire with the answers of this in place, you know, so it'll make it a lot easier. Does anybody have questions on this assessment before I look at assessment 3? Okay, either I'm clear as mud or you're all way too tired. So let me just show you version assessment 3. Okay, just check there's no chat questions. Okay, rightio, so let's make this big. So this is assessment 3, which is on case 6. And this is 2,600 words in total. And you'll see there's a lot of assessment criteria covered in this. So there are some for Unit 11, Unit 8, and quite a lot from Unit 1 as well. So it's kind of far-reaching, if you will. And you'll be answering in a Word document. Ideally, please use the Word document provided. So for example, when it says all the titles, you can put your answers there if you wish. Or you can just write one chunk of an answer if you prefer to do it that way, that's fine. But I would suggest you use the template document because you'll see all the little points. Like for example, here for the introduction, it's saying exactly how many words should be in the introduction, and we've broken it down even further. So we've said, have 150 words telling me the aim of the report, 300 words giving a synopsis of the client, and I've given you 3 points of what to include in those 300 words. And then 50 words only to list the clinical imbalances that IFM outlines could contribute to the development of CFS. So if you are just writing in your own Word document, you might forget some of these bits and then I'll have to make you resubmit. So please don't do that. Use the Word doc and then you can keep referring back and you can literally tick it off. Okay, this bit is 152 words, great. This bit is 289. Great. Have I included description? Yep. Ooh, I never put in her weight. Better put in her weight. Okay, that's brought me up to whatever, 292 words, you know? So just use this template. For some of the important ACs, we've given you extra information, because something in this that's really important for me to highlight is that you have to include and you have to meet the referencing AC in this assessment. So the final assessment, I know that I made some of you resubmit for referencing where it needed a lot of work. Some of you, I've made pointers in Unit 9, say, some of you for Unit 8 that I marked as well. But you have to meet it. So please review the referencing guide that you have on Moodle really carefully and make sure that you're referencing correctly, because if it's not done correctly, I will make you resubmit. What I'm going to do is, for everybody, before I actually mark your report, I'm going to go to the references list first. And if the references list isn't done properly, I'm going to just immediately revert to your submission to draft and get you to work on it, just to try and save some time, you know, rather than me reading it, then realizing your referencing wasn't done properly. So I'll try and give you that little window, because we'll be tight for time, you know, to get this finished and get you moving on to PNT next year. So that's why I'm putting it on record as being recorded. Please make sure you're referencing correctly. If you're not sure of your referencing yet, put that on the forum, all right? It's absolutely okay to ask me questions, I'll answer. Or if you say, okay, this is the reference I want to use, Gwen, I'm not 100% sure how to list it, ask me. So you're going to have citations throughout your text. And I'm going to be pernickety about punctuation and how you're using it this time, because it's your final end of year report. Then you have a references list. But here's the thing, you also need to add in a bibliography. Okay, because there's a specific AC to meet for the bibliography, which, as you can see here, is Unit 1 AC 2.2. So I've told you which slide in the referencing guide that you should use. So it's page 10 or slide 10 of the referencing guidelines PowerPoint version 4, which is the one you have, that tells you how to do bibliography. Basically what the bibliography is it can be anything that you don't cite in your answer, but you read. Maybe to get an understanding of RA, or something that you read about the immune system and inflammation or testing that is anyway relevant to the report, but you don't actually end up using it as a citation or as a reference. That goes in your bibliography. Now, the way you list it is exactly the same as for the referencing. You use the Harvard referencing guide, you know, whether it's like, it might be a PowerPoint from Unit 7, say, that you're not going to use in this report, but you read it and it helped you understand how DAMPs and PAMPs, for example, are involved, but you don't actually mention that exactly in this report. So that goes then into the bibliography. And we're asking you for a minimum of 1. I know already that some of you are going to have, I can think of one student in particular who I'm sure knows who I'm talking about, who's going to have 5 or 6 there because she's been reading loads all the time, right? So that's easy peasy. You can just put stuff down that was sort of relevant to this. Some of you might have found that for assessments, you've only read like the bare minimum. So you might find this a little bit harder, which is why I'm flagging it to you, just to make sure you need to have at least 10 references and 1 in the bibliography. So that's the minimum things you need to have in the end, is 11 different references. So I'm telling you now, it doesn't count to list PowerPoint 2, Unit 11, 5 times. That's 1 reference, okay? Not 5, 1. But please do ask me questions, because I helped write the referencing guide. It's one of my things that I love. I love referencing. So just ask me and I'll answer, okay? I'd rather you ask me loads of questions between now and your time writing this, you know? What I might do is I might actually dedicate a thread to it. That's what I'll do. I'll set up a thread tomorrow morning on referencing, and you can just come on and ask me, okay? And also you could help each other out. So if somebody puts up a question, how do I reference this amazing podcast I listened to on MECFS? Or maybe you watch the movie, we recommend that you watch a movie called Unrest. in the material, you might go and watch that on Netflix and you would say, I have no idea how to put that in my bibliography. Like that might be a handy one in your bibliography, because you'll be watching that to gain an understanding of what it's like to live with ME/CFS, but you might actually reference it in the report, for example. So I hope that makes sense. So part one, we've already gone through actually, the introduction. Then you do your main body. That's the big chunk. So that's 1,500 words. That's quite a lot. I suspect some of you will find it hard to get to 1,500, and some of you will be like me and you'll write 3,000 and have to cut out all the waffle and get down to the juicy stuff. Doesn't matter, you know, we all have our way of getting there, but it's about 1,500 words. And again, the plus minus 10% applies. So you're going between 1,350 and 1,650. And if you want to be really kind to me, you put the word count for each section in there so I can see straight away, and I don't have to go and do the word count if I feel that it's too short or too long, okay? So here you're putting just above, you had 50 words to list the clinical imbalances that IFM suggest contribute. And now you're saying the clinical imbalances in this case. So first it's very general, and now you're going specific to the case. And then you're going to say the order that you're going to discuss them in. So it's like giving me a little heads up that you're going to be talking about, let's say, oh, I don't know, maldigestion, intestinal permeability, hypercortisolism, chronic inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction. You know, you might choose to do it that way. And then I'll know, okay, this is how it's going to be laid out and this is how it's going to flow. Doesn't matter, you don't have to do the order I've just said. All you have to do is in this part, just say how you're going to do it. And then for each of the, so let's say you chose five clinical imbalances. You need to do 3 things. For each one, you have to say why you think the client is experiencing this. So are there signs and symptoms? The nutrition, lifestyle, and environmental factors in the short and long term. So maybe there's something that's been going on for years, right? And maybe there's something that has happened just in the last 1 year. So that's short term versus long term. Sorry, I'm doing all the actions and I don't think you can see my hand disappear off screen. But anyway, and then outline how that clinical imbalances could have impacted on the development of other imbalances. So you can see again how you've done this. You've done all this already. You're just putting it now. First, you did it in a little PowerPoint presentation where it's a mind map, and now you're writing it out in your own words, okay? And then you do your conclusion, which is 200 words. Not a huge amount of words for your conclusion, and you're just saying what's key to the case. It's a bit like the conclusion slide for assessment 2, which of course will be a lot less words because it's in a PowerPoint. But you're basically elaborating this and then just finalize what nutrition, lifestyle, environmental factors that have collectively driven these clinical imbalances, okay? And then you're going to compare and contrast the biomedical and the functional medicine approach to chronic fatigue syndrome. You'll see when you do the material why we're asking you to do this, because it is worlds apart. So with some conditions like metabolic syndrome and RA, there's a lot known by the biomedical system. You know, there's diagnoses, there's biomedical markers, there's treatments. For ME/CFS, you will see they have nothing really. So there'll be strengths and weaknesses there. So what's the approach to the pathophysiology and what's the approach to the pathogenesis as well? So we'll just make sure you include one similarity and one difference. So where are they similar? So like a similarity could be, I'm just thinking from hormonal point of view, for example, endometriosis is very poorly understood, or fibroids. You'll do them in PNT Unit 8. But both functional medicine and the biomedical model agree that estrogen is the main driving force. So that is a similarity, for example. But there might be, say, a difference in the diagnosis of something. Biomedical model, you know, might rely on scanning, whereas the functional medicine model might look at a collection of imbalances that could be called X, Y, and Z or whatever. So there's your similarity and a difference. And then you finish with your reflection question. And this is like all of NLCD, having all, well, mainly 7, unit 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I suppose. But can you consider what are the strengths and weaknesses of both? Like, what are the strengths of the biomedical system? What are the weaknesses? And then do the same for the functional medicine models. If you wish, you can use case 4, 5, and 6 to help you with this answer. And also you want to use your experience from having done the clinical practice unit as well. It'll be quite personal. I'm sure some of your answers will overlap, but for some of you, they'll be more personal to a case or not. You know, one case might really show it to you over another. So that is your assessment 3. And like I said, like you have plenty of time, I think, to do it. You have an audio recording that I will give you after the weekend, after the lecture weekend, because you'll be busy doing assessment 2 first. So I'm not going to give it to you just yet, you know, just to give you time. And then you have a tutorial with it as well. So you'll have loads of support to do this assessment, and you've done all the parts, bar maybe the last 2 questions where you're looking at comparing the biomedical and the functional medicine model. They're slightly different, but I think you'll have a good idea when you've done MECFS. To me, it really highlighted the differences more so. So they're the assessments. Assessment 1 is a quiz, like I said, 5 attempts, the usual. You have the webinars we've gone through. So what I would do just at the end, for anybody, and I forgot to put it into my folder, of course, is just to have a quick look at the lecture plan. And like I said, I'm very excited that a lot of the learners are coming on board, because I'm hoping that I'm making it as interesting as I can for an online weekend, you know, because it's going to be mainly me talking into a screen where I can't see faces, which is really difficult actually, because I feed off the energy in the room. I will take mental breaks. I will put in some movement breaks. So you have had me, some of you have had me in class actually for unit 7. I had to think back long ago. So I do like to put on music or do a meditation or breathing exercises. So I'm going to try my best to do that. I'm going to be at a desk that I can put into standing desk. So I will be putting it up and down. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do my squats, calf raises and lunges that I normally do. If I'm on a conference, you know, because I can take the video off, I won't be able to do that, but you guys can. With one student in PNT, I did the online lecture weekend for them, and she was on the treadmill for a good part of it. So whatever will help you stay alert, please do it. Whether that's loads of snacks and beverages, a standing desk, whether it's a case of having Zoom in your headphones and you're going outside for a walk, whatever works, okay? You'll see that we're focusing again on kind of tutorials for assimilation and biotransformation and communication. That'll be Saturday morning. So the breaks are slightly later because of that. I want to finish that off. Then we're going to have a review of MECFS. I'm going to suggest that next week you glance at PowerPoints 1 and 2, the MECFS and RA, and I'll prompt you next week on the forum. I'll guide you very specifically on what slide numbers that might be good to have done before the weekend, you know, or if you don't have time, you can review them after the weekend as well, because what I didn't want to do is spend an entire weekend just lecturing you guys, because it's 114 slides. Like, I could take 5 hours just talking, and I don't want to do that because I think you'd be bored. And then what I've done is I've slightly shortened the lunch hour on the Saturday, and I've invited my colleague and friend Georgie on, because Georgie's brother is an MECFS sufferer, and she gave us a talk on the condition when I was still a student. And I found it incredible to hear from a family member and to hear, a first-hand story. And I've been updated on his progress, but I just thought it would be amazing. Like, I would have loved to have given her an hour. There just isn't the time. So she's coming in for half an hour to talk to you about the impact of CFS on friends and family, which I think will just really bring it home. So I would urge you, so even those of you who can't make the morning, try and come on for that. You know, even if you're busy with baby or the kids, pop that on. Or if you want to listen to the recording, look for that bit. I just think it'll really pull it together for you. Then we're going to introduce case 6. So we're focusing on NECFS on the Saturday. 45 minutes, I will look at the case with you guys. And then I'm going to send you off for 45 minutes to go through the questionnaire yourselves and do my timeline and matrix, just to really get your eye into that case yourself. And then we'll come back and we'll go through the PowerPoint together. Then, like I said, you have the audio recording of it that Moira did last year. And then you'll have a tutorial with Moira on this as well. So I do feel like you'll be leaving that Saturday with a really good understanding of case 6 and that assessment, your assessment 3, okay, your report. And then on Sunday, we're focusing on RA. I've given half an hour in the morning if we need it to go over anything from the Saturday. If we don't need it, I'm going to crack on with RA, because RA is it's technical, I suppose, because it's the immune system, right? So there's a lot in it. So I am going to go through the pathogenesis of it and then the biomedical approach. And then we have an hour and a quarter to look at the functional medicine approach. So it's not a lot of lectures. So I am expecting you to go and review some of the material yourselves. Again, I was trying to think what's the best way to run this. And student feedback from having done an online lecture weekend was, it was great that it wasn't just all lecture, because it would have been really hard online. And I know myself from attending conferences online, I find it really hard to stay with the person speaking if it's much more than an hour and a half on one topic. You know, I find when they're talking for 3 hours, I'm like this. So I'm sure it'll be the same, no matter how good I am. So then we're going to look at the case after lunch. Okay, so the lunch on Sunday is a little bit earlier. So just for anybody who's trying to plan, they can come on at certain times. Just make sure you familiar yourself with that. And because I know people are going to come on and off at the weekend, I'm going to stick to these times. So even if I haven't finished my material, I will take the breaks at those times. Whereas usually in class, if we're in OLH, I'll kind of go, look, I have 5 slides left, we'll keep going. I won't do that, just to be mindful of people who are coming on and off. After lunch, I will introduce you a better look at that template, even though we've done a good look at it today, actually, and case 5. And that's then when you're set off for 2 hours to work with your partner. So I've assigned 2:15 to 4:15 on that Sunday for you to go and work with your partner. So like I said, you need to make sure you've set up whether you're going to use Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whatever it is, phone call, to work together, okay? And then I'll have you come back on and just either feedback, maybe you might have any questions, but both on Sunday and Saturday. So Saturday, it's here, your 3:15 to 4, your independent work. And Sunday, it's 2:15 to 4:15. I will stay on Zoom, right? I'll be there. I might have the camera off. I'll decide yet. I'll have the volume on though. But yeah, I'll be there. So you can just, what I'll do is I'll leave up the visuals, so you can just pop if I see your face come on, I'll know you have a question to ask me. And that's absolutely fine. So I am there for the entire weekend. But I just thought in class we would do this group work together or pair work. So why not do it online? You know, give you the opportunity to work on the assessment. So that is an introduction to Unit 11. I'm hoping you have a good overview now and an idea of what we're going to be covering and what we're doing and what's involved in the unit. So does anybody have any questions? And if you don't, feel free to log off because it's 9 o'clock. Okay, I think you're very tired after Unit 10. Even just any thoughts on Unit 11?
Sounds like a lot of work, but we'll get there. That's all.
You will. No, it does look like a lot of work.
Overwhelming at the moment, but yeah.
But I think, especially after the weekend and all the tutorials, because we're going to do quite a chunk. Basically what I'm doing is I'm cutting out a lot of the theory to try and make it more practical so that the assessments aren't as much work for you.
Yeah.
But I know from feedback from Lynn and Moira, who would have marked this in the previous couple of years, the feedback was usually that the assessments were really good. so that the students did all just come into their own on this. And I think you will, like, I've read a lot of your assessments coming up to this point, and I'm really excited about it because I think you all have done the prep work. It's just now putting it all together.
Yeah, I suppose it's just the last few units have just been very intense with everything that's been going on, and because it's all been done online.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
I think everyone is exhausted, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, and it is, and it's the end. You'll be the same in P&T next year.
Yeah.
The end is really hard, and then you just have to kind of go, right, well, I have a couple of weeks off then before I jump into the next. And I'm hoping that by giving you all the revision for the clinical imbalances, that'll really help. I'm hoping, because we didn't do that. It was a reading week before without any guidance. So
yeah,
fingers
no,
crossed.
that's fantastic. No, I appreciate all the help we can get. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to chime in? I will